Welcome to Serial Podcast 9.
I'm Gerard Peralta.
And I'm Kevin Peterson.
And I'm Ryan Benoit, and this is Serial Podcast 9.
Tonight we're going to talk about how not to age out of the car scene, how you can get old and still have fun with cars, why people get out of cars, and all sorts of stuff like that, I guess.
Seems like a silly topic, but it affects over, I don't know, how many people a year?
Give us the stats, Ryan. Come on.
Probably like 365 million, I'd say.
Geek out, bro. I mean, the percentage of our friends that are getting out of cars, I would say well over 50% for sure.
There's a ton of people always getting out of cars, but it seemed like before there was an equal amount of people always getting into cars.
Cars, I guess, are maybe in today's day and age a little bit stupid. So you have to be kind of a bit of an idiot to get fully into cars.
I think cars have always been stupid, but it hasn't stopped us.
But less stupid because now there's like electric and environment and
right.
Yeah, and like the car can drive itself, so like you could just be doing business or playing COD. So like why are you going to pay attention to driving?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you could be a pro drifter in the sim fucking world too, man. Like, why are you gonna have a real car when you just have a sick rig
and better for the environment?
Woof.
Yeah,
it's like we just solved climate change, you guys.
I just mean in 2021, there's a vast myriad of things other than cars to do versus in 2002 when half the shit didn't even exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or back in like before that,
The three of us are old-ish. Like, we're not super old, but we're getting there. I can say that I don't know if I have any friends that are older than Gerard that are into import cars. He's like an anomaly to me because most of the people I know have gotten out of the car scene probably around the time they hit like 30 or so. You see like a drop off. And Kevin has crossed the 30-year-old threshold. What did we decide?
I think I'm 35.
The time on your watch still says you're 35, which is great.
And you, how old, Ryan? How old are you?
I am 36 still.
Okay, and I'm 44.
So, like I said, not a ton of people that I know of are this age in the car scene. So, question we're trying to solve today is how to get old and stay in the car scene. Let's start with you guys because you've done it. How did you achieve the goal?
I don't know. I probably speak for Gerard and I, but like cars were everything to me from before I knew what they were. You know what I mean? Like my parents said that I would just take anything I could get my hand on and like drive it around, like and make car noises. So like, yeah, I don't know. I've always felt like this was always going to be my whole life. So I couldn't even really imagine what I do without it.
Imagine you're a drug addict and you're into heroin or, the hardest drug ever. And I think you probably have like maybe a 5% success rate of like kicking that habit. And that's basically it, man. Like I'm a lifer. That's it. And to address Ryan's thing of saying I'm an anomaly, I don't think so, man. Like look at Japan, dude. Like there's like pro drifters that are like 50 years old. It's like they're getting into drifting. Well, not getting into drifting, but getting into the pro scene at like 30 plus. Like I think it's just maybe in North America or like
Canada. Might be a Canadian thing.
Well, I was gonna say like we have lots of older customers and like we have like older local customers and like
also in Europe, like Europe and Eastern Europe, like if you look at like Kristaps Blus and like all those dudes from like Latvia and like Russia and like Eastern Europe, a lot of dudes are quite old. Like they're definitely there's a lot of the young kids and stuff, but I think maybe in some places you can't be into it if you're that young because it might be really expensive. So you can only actually be into it if you have enough money, i.e., you're established in life, right? But here it's like every Tom, Dick, and Harry has like a 240 or a Civic or a car basically. So
first, let me say I don't know any of those people that you're talking about, so they don't count.
Yeah, who the hell is Tom, Dick, or Harry?
Yeah. And where do they live in Russia? No. But I'm sorry. What I'm actually saying is in my life, you're an anomaly. I don't have any friends that are in your age bracket that still care about import cars. Generally, like I said, you come of age and you drop the frivolous thing that is like car culture. It's like, all right, time to get a mortgage. Can't probably afford to have my car anymore. Or getting married. Maybe I don't have actually, you know what? Marriage is never usually the out for people.
But I mean, I don't know.
Mortgage.
There's like a million things that can get you out of car culture.
Depends
Like,
how deep
oh,
you are in car culture.
I
Right.
bought a boat and I love it now. Like I love getting out there. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I bought a motorcycle and like it's just so much more exhilarating a feeling than I've ever had in my car. Or like, you know, like, oh, now I'm super into flying drones. It's infinitely cheaper and I get to see all these cool things. And that, you know, there's like a million distractions kind of, you know.
I think we've just solved how to get people to kick drugs is just to give them a boat. To Gerard's point.
Okay,
Or
but the other
drones.
thing too.
No, then they'll just transport drugs.
Oh, yeah, no. They'll make their money work for them.
Depends on how into cars you are, but just generally, once you're into cars, it's fucking difficult, dude. Like there's endless amounts of work,
Yeah,
endless amounts of money,
exactly.
endless amounts of sacrifice. Like,
It's not an easy hobby.
Yeah, and I mean, and then you add drifting to the mix, man. I've done it maybe a few times, but I know dudes that like, you know, travel across the country towing their car with like some clapped out vehicle and like sleep in said vehicle for 3 nights. They barely got their car together and like they're doing engine swaps across the country and, you know, scrambling to find a block and, you know, literally just doing every possible thing they can to go drifting that day. And that shit gets old real quick, man. You know, it's expensive. It's difficult. It's not that fun. You know, it becomes not really worth it. So then you don't, you know, you want a nicer tow truck.
That's a young man's game right there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
Like the more events you go to, you're like, well, maybe I'll rent the hotel for $80 and have a shower and have a bed and you know
Yep.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
at that point, it seems like a no-brainer. When you're younger, you're just like, you mean like $80? Hell no! Like
Yeah, you're like shit. That's my
that's
like
a set of
tires.
tires.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Jack Connolly trying to get to final bout 1 drove his Cressida to Chicago. So like Jordan Hall and Eric Zapata both trailer their cars and Jack's just street driving his car. He gets there, has to, you know, like rebuild his diff because it's fucked. And he made it, loved it. They drove the event, but that was the last time Hot Boys drove together. And you could kind of see it coming. We'll always vividly remember dudes in the parking lot being super into the fact that Jack drove his car there from Canada, and it was a long
That's
drive.
sick. That's
Yeah,
so
and
sick.
everyone was sick, and they're like, "Sick, dude." And he's like, "No, man, it's a bad idea. Like, why did I do this?" It was almost like in that moment you could see like adulthood click in and be like, "Man, I'm making weird decisions."
Yeah.
You start looking at your bank account and your other responsibilities in life. It's like, okay, maybe I've kind of exerted the amount of fun that I can have right now, and I need to focus on other aspects of my life, because if I keep doing this, I'm going to be in the exact same spot that I was last year or the year before.
Yeah.
You guys are the kind of the exception to this, because
I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's lots of people who are able to make that balance work, though. You know, like
name 3.
So the balance of like work, like family life, drifting, and cars, and then job.
Yeah.
Is that the balance?
Having
I don't
the
know,
income
man.
to do it. If you get to the point where you have a wife and kids, Gerard, you have children. I
Yes.
have a child, but I don't drift. But even I struggle with the fact it's like there's a version of me to do media because I loved doing media that at the drop of a hat would pay money to go somewhere to do a thing
Yeah.
and be like, just because I love it, oh, I'm so passionate about it. But then when I had a kid, I had to actually be like, oh shit, is this like the best idea for my family to be just buggering off
Yeah.
to California for a weekend to shoot an event? My kid needs daycare money.
But that's life, man. You know
That
what I
is,
mean?
and
And
that's what
honestly, it's for me, it's kind of like, yeah, like what is it that you really truly enjoy? Like, do you truly enjoy like not fucking going there and then having the daycare money, or like do you truly enjoy the experience of shooting that event in California, showing your family like a different place, eating breakfast in some cool like little nook in California, and then coming home and then saying, oh, that was totally dope. We're a little bit further back than we were before the trip, but like it was worth it. You know what I mean? That's
Oh,
kind of always how it's been for
I
me.
never bring my family with me when I go shoot.
Oh, okay. Well, like you were like toting my kids around and stuff. So
No, I know. I'm saying like I gotta like the way that my income is spread out. A lot of the money for the last 3 years has been invested in childcare, right? Because like
yeah, I mean,
in
childcare is so
Vancouver.
bloody expensive.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole other thing though, is we're coming from Vancouver, BC. We're like the second most expensive city to live in the world besides Hong Kong. And like the other thing is everyone's getting out of cars because you can't even have a car here right now. What's the
Yeah.
point of having a car when you can't even drive your car here right now?
And like I said, that's one of those difficulties. Okay, so there's the drifting people that, you know, slept in their car, you know, literally turned 2 weeks of their life upside down so they could do one event. Like, you know, there's all that. But then there's the dudes that just want to have a fucking exhaust or lower their car or have cool wheels on it, and they still get hassled. And then you got a VI, which is, you know, vehicle inspection. And then you got to like get it inspected and pay the ticket and, you know, endless amounts of crap. So then you put it back to stock and then you modify it again and you get caught again. It's like, how many times are you going to do that till you're like, you know what? I'm over it. Buy a BMW that's stock and leave it.
And then you'll still get pulled over in Vancouver right now.
Still get pulled over.
Yeah, exactly. It like literally doesn't even matter.
This is a thing that happens in other, and maybe it is just a Canadian thing. But like I have one of the guys that helped start Dota Logic just got tired of what the car scene had become in Saskatchewan. And it was like, this isn't for me anymore. I don't care about it. And he just went and bought a newer 4Runner. He's like, this is what I'm into now. And he was one of the guys that helped get me into cars. It isn't just a Vancouver.
I think that's been a huge thing too, though. That whole like overland thing. That's just another way to spend your money modifying a vehicle that is maybe more practical for your new family. It's bigger and you can put them in the back and you can take them more places, and it's safer and newer and you can go anywhere, you know, but it's still like the same joy of buying the fucking wheels and buying the fucking snorkel and all that shit, you know?
Lift kit.
Yeah. Bumpers and fucking roto packs and
the shovels and the
fucking
gotta get
shovels,
those ladders on the back.
radios,
CBs and yeah, exactly, ditch lights and
the big antenna.
It's still like modifying your car, but somehow slightly more acceptable.
Yeah, it is still the world of modification, but it's still not cars, though, right? At the end of the day, it's not
the same thing,
practical.
man.
It's the same.
I don't know.
It's exactly the same thing.
I think part of cars, especially what we're into, there's a definite impracticality about it.
Buddy, how practical is a 6-inch lifted, like I don't know, solid axle, whatever on 40s?
I don't know, but I don't need to like slow down and watch out for speed bumps in that car.
No, you definitely don't. But you have to deal with like death wobble on the highway and like, you know, going around a corner at like 40K and like impossibly terrible fuel economy, or like, you know,
eats brake pads and rotors and
4Runner. I'll just do that. When I talk about this from my experience, it's not people that have built like extreme versions like that. Like it's actually way more like mild, toned down.
Yeah, like basic 33s with like, I don't know, drawers and like max tracks.
Maybe,
like
or not even that. Like maybe just a roof rack and some new wheels. And
a roof rack? What are you putting on that roof rack, bro?
Just the look. Just the
No. You need an awning. Okay, first of all, you need the awning.
You're just putting the looks that you get from the peasants you drive by on that roof rack. Maybe you're being devil's advocate a little bit. I don't know.
I will say one thing. Like before, when I was, let's say, like 18 through 24, it was cars. Like cars and partying. That was the only thing I spent my money on. Like having a good time and then going drifting, like modifying my car, buying all sorts of like sets of wheels. Like it didn't really matter, you know? But now, like that I'm a bit older, I do have like a truck and I have a motorcycle and I have a scooter and I have all this other stupid shit.
And I have another car. I have a stupid car. Yeah. And I have a shitty car.
Yeah, exactly. I just have all this stupid shit that takes up my time and my energy and brain space and bank space. And it, you know, like you just get drawn a bit out.
You also have a business. You guys are also running a business. That's actually like the elephant in the room for this one.
Yeah.
You guys are running a business. Your proximity to the car scene, I would say has somewhat of a direct effect.
It's a necessity almost for
it's a
us,
necessity.
honestly.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not driving a cool car, nobody gives a shit about Serial9 or like me or whatever. Or if I'm not taking pictures of a cool car, or if I'm not working on a cool car, whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you guys are the first people that I've come across that can do grassroots drifting and have some sort of ROI to it.
And I mean, honestly, like let's just kind of dial it back a bit here. Like I didn't drift for 8 years. Like when I started this company or, whatever, had a kid and this and that, like I was pretty much out of cars for a long time. Like it was super sad. I felt like like an empty shell of myself. I was driving a 2001 Civic, completely stock, and then I finally got the Stagia, which was kind of sick for my family, modified that a little bit. And I started, feel it again and it was cool. And then, fast forward to whatever, 2019 and built the Aristo, did all that stuff. Yeah. So it was a long time that we had to sacrifice in order to get back to where we were. I don't know. Kevin sort of always had something, didn't you?
I had the Celsior while you were building up that like GS, and then you got the Aristo. I still had like the Celsior, but
Yeah.
I also hadn't drifted in a long, maybe it was like 7 years or something. But yeah, it was kind of an equal amount of time. Kind of for that same reason. It was just we're trying to like build the company. Neither of us had a drift car at the time, and it didn't really make sense. But then we were kind of like, we've been working on this for a while, and like we got to kind of get back to our roots, which is drifting. A big part of that was we were just like, we're gonna stop sponsoring other people who we're not seeing any return from, and sponsor ourselves, so we can just go to an event and be our own marketing. So
right. Solid investment. Works out in the end.
It was the best investment I ever made.
And honestly, like realistically, like, so like you're going to have a parts company and not have cars to put the parts on. It makes absolutely no sense. Nobody's going to like think your shit's dope when you don't even run your own stuff. It doesn't make sense. Right. So it is very important for us to have these cars and to test these parts and to go drifting. I mean, we have other people that, obviously we sponsor and stuff, but you can never, ever get the job done the same unless you're doing it yourself.
What I think is not being said, and coming back to the point of how do you get old, is there's actually a sense of like the delay of gratification, right? So I think a lot of people start staring down the barrel of, oh my God, I have so many responsibilities coming up. It's like, I'm just going to get rid of this car. The Altezza is probably worth a decent chunk of change. The Aristo would have been worth a decent chunk of change. And it's money sitting there that if you're not doing a thing with, you can just be like, okay, out the door you go. Focus your priorities. But what you guys actually did was you took the time away from a thing. And instead of just being like, I'm fully done, you more like were strategic about how you would come back to it later. I think just a lot of people leave and don't ever think about how they're going to come back, right? It's very short-sighted.
I mean, in my opinion, the bottom line is those people weren't really that into cars anyways, right? It comes to a point where it's like a lot of cars get sold because, okay, you need a mortgage, so you need a down payment, so you're selling that car. That's 20, 30K in basically bullshit that you've wasted your life on, and you drive it like, I don't know, 6 to 10 times a year. So now you got a down payment, or, you get married, you got to, I don't know, maybe you're having a kid.
Pay for the wedding.
Yeah, whatever it may be. Like you said, man, that car
there's always a million reasons.
It's a luxury that
So for me, I can say from my experiences, when I had my daughter, I think maybe I was old enough and had owned enough cars to realize I was like, hey, what will likely happen and how can I avoid that? And so I catch a lot of shit for not driving my car. And I get that. That's warranted. But also part of the reason I did it was because if it was in my face every day, I would probably be more actively thinking about the amount of money that it's worth. I don't think about that car every day because it's out of sight, out of mind. But I did that on purpose, knowing that, okay, I'm going to do this for like 5 years and that car's still going to be there and I'm still going to care about it.
Yeah.
And I also knew that if I sold that car,
that's the end of it.
Yeah, that's like, what's my re-entry? It's like I'm building a car that I care less about. So then it might as well be over. And that was...
But also, like, are you ever going to have that pool of money that you can just take out and spend on a car?
No, never again.
Especially when the JDM cars are worth so much money now. It's like, you're going to buy an Aristo for 40 grand?
Yeah, it's way harder now though. It's like looking, it's like, ooh, it might be worth $19,000. You start doing the math and you're like, well, what the fuck am I gonna buy? It's like I can't get into anything that I actually care about for that
G35
price.
sedan.
Nobody wants that. Get that out of my life.
Everybody wants that.
Oh yeah.
No,
Where's
you want an
yours?
FRS. I know you want an FRS, man. Come on.
Yeah, Ryan already said that's what he would get. He's like, I get the FRS. I'd learn how to drive properly.
I guess that's the thing. It's like you start looking at the dollar signs that you can get for your car, the responsibilities that you have.
And then also it becomes old, right? Like the amount of work and, like you said, return
That's
on.
what I mean. It's not instant gratification, which like I feel like is the ticket of the day.
Yeah.
Cars take time. You have to learn about all the different aspects and all the different systems and how they work. Just because you have this Toyota doesn't mean it's the same as that Toyota, and the Toyota is not the same as the Nissan, and like the Nissan's not the same as the Lotus, and like they're all different. They all have little intricacies about them. It's a long game of love with cars.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people have that anymore, or
Right.
No.
are
I
gonna
mean, it's
continue to
easy
have
when
that.
you're young and your crew all have cool cars and you build your cars and you go to a few shows. Maybe maybe you're into drifting. You hit a few drift events. You bang doors with your friends. It's super sick. You go to like a DUI weekend or some sort of drift weekend, and it's like partying in cars and it's like super awesome. And then it's like you get a bit older and you're kind of like, well, shit, man. Like I don't know, it's not that cool anymore. And then maybe you just weren't really that into cars. You know?
I disagree. I still like getting fucked up with my friends at drift events.
But no, I mean, if I can
parts.
totally see Gerard's point of view, though. It's like if you're some dude who's just having a good time, then that's having a good time. And then, you know what I mean? And then it's all of a sudden now it's not as much fun because you've done all that shit.
Or maybe
Like,
one guy gets out of it and then it's like, oh, like Mikey's
Well,
not
no,
into
not-
cars
no.
anymore. Or like Alfred's not into cars. And it just
Well,
like,
now he buys a boat, and now he's like, oh shit, now there's 10 girls on my boat every weekend. All his buddies like, well shit, like I'm gonna buy a boat, and then they're all out of cars now because they bought boats or something.
I mean, or they just all like diffuse in other ways. One guy gets a corporate job and like can't drive his ridiculous fucking drift car anymore.
I had that with my 180, driving that to like my profession and being like, why am I driving this car? I've told you guys the stories before, but it had like the blog roll on the back of all the other blogs that I liked, and it had like one of them had a swear word in it. It's like we don't see a lot of serial fucking 9 anymore, like,
Yeah.
and I just remember looking
Maybe
at
we'll bring it back. Maybe we'll bring it back.
Perfect. And I just remember looking at that car and being like, it's not very apparent that, like, because it was a 180 and it was kind of beat at that point a little bit. And I was just like, it's not even very apparent that I'm into cars. It's just kind of like I look like a bit of a duster.
A duster?
Yeah.
The fuck is a duster?
No, it's the best. We're all going to start saying duster now.
You mean a dirtbag?
No, I was a duster. Not a
Okay.
dirtbag.
Explain this duster to me.
I don't know. It's just like
You can't explain it.
yeah,
A dirtbag.
No, because a dirtbag's a different thing. Like I wasn't like
Good.
stealing my grandma's money for like
A drift
scratch
skid.
and win tickets. That's
No,
a
you just-
dirtbag. A duster is like a person's dead weight. They're a duster. It's you got dust under things that are useless. It wasn't even that the car was like awful. It was just in the context of working. Like I work at a tech company. In the context of working at a tech company.
You should be riding a bike
Well, but it was in Saskatchewan, yeah. But you should be riding a bike.
or driving a Prius.
My dad lets me borrow the Prius when I go back to Saskatchewan, and that is what I drive to that office when I go back. It was just kind of out of place and seemed maybe more juvenile than being a grown-up.
I think
Yeah.
Gerard and I have both been pulled over in our Cressidas in our work parking lot.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I have, and I'm pretty sure Gerard.
Yeah, I
has.
did. I have for sure for drifting too.
Yeah, I got a VI.
Oh, really? Yeah, he
Yeah.
didn't give me a VI or anything, but he came. Yeah, I basically drifted the corner in front of my work, parked the car, went inside, and the cop came inside. Was like, "Who owns that yellow car?" And I had to go out. And luckily, he was a cool dude that had Harleys and tattoos, and he was like, "Yo, how much power does this thing make?" But other than that, he was like, "Yo, don't do that."
For me, it was like 7 a.m, and I was pulling out of a little side street right by my work, and there was a car coming, and I was like, oh shit, it was one of those moments where you kind of pull out and you're like a deer in the headlights. So I'm like, I got to keep going. So I kind of gun it, drift a little bit on the road, and like, sure as shit, that was a cop car. And I'm like, oh, I'll just keep going. And I'm like, I'll just make it to work. It'll be okay. Like, and then, obviously it wasn't okay. And it's just like, that was like, it had a cage at that time. And he was just like,
What the fuck is this thing?
Yeah. What is this thing, man? And like, what was that? And I was like, well, you caught me off guard. And he was like, man, you got to get this thing inspected. And, like, oh.
And I mean, that's the thing too, is like, when you're younger and stuff, like shit doesn't matter. You like, first thing you do is rip the fucking interior out. And then you're like, oh, I don't have door handles. I don't have carpet. I don't have cup holders. I don't need power windows. I don't need a stereo. I don't need any of that shit. And then it's like, well, you get a bit older and you're kind of like, well, power windows, they're kind of tight. I like power windows. Oh, keyless
entry. I bought a car with power windows. Like,
yeah,
might as well keep them.
I read I was reading a thread the other day about somebody who wanted to buy a 4Runner, but it didn't come with heated seats. And he was like, look, my wife and I both believe heated seats are a necessity to this vehicle. How do I get heated seats in a brand new 4Runner and like an SR5 or whatever? And it was...
you go to Can Tire, you buy the shit, you plug it into your cigarette lighter.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, but then is that what they want? It was funny because it was like, I think they were going from a Sorrento, and it was obviously that has like some version of bells and whistles because it has to sell that vehicle.
Yeah, it's the only way someone would actually buy it.
To go to like this like kind of bare bones 4Runner. But then that is kind of your point. You get older and you start looking at the trade-off for the luxuries in a vehicle compared to maybe the power windows are good. Maybe the seats should be comfortable.
It's like you get sick of calling your friends to fucking bail you out. It's like, yo, man, my like battery doesn't work anymore. My alternator belt fucked up. Yo, my tranny just blew up again, or like my tire debeated. Endless amount of stuff, and it's like, I just want a car that fucking gets me to work and like go home, or I just want a car that works.
I could never, ever, ever understand people who would drive a Camry. It didn't make any sense to me. And now, like I might as well get a Camry tattoo. Like I'll just like a shout Camry from the mountaintop and tell everybody just to buy a Camry.
It's funny because I had that Camry before Kevin, and I was like, dude, just seriously, just get this Camry. It's like the best car in the world. He's like, yo, fuck like, that, man. Like
Mikey, like
yeah. I turned everybody on a Camry.
Had a Camry forever, and then like he was like, yo, like I'm beyond Camry now. Bought that like G35, total lemon, and then was just like, man, like should have never sold that Camry.
There is a part of me, and maybe this is another part of getting old. I really like the new Camrys.
So sick.
Two-tone.
Dude, I have a few in my neighborhood. There's like there's one TRD one, and then there's like a couple like the crazy ones. Man, they look so dope, man.
And I've like priced them out for fun, and I'm like, what am I fucking doing?
It's 300 horsepower.
Yeah.
At least.
301.
Yeah, like Camrys are tight when they have exhaust valves and shit now. It's like, what? This is not your mom's Camry.
They have that Camry hybrid, like the 2011 or whatever it was, Camry hybrid.
Yeah.
Like super sick looking car.
Yeah, I do want a hybrid for my daily next. See, these
maybe
are
that's how you get old in the car scene is you get a 2011 Camry hybrid and you fucking donk it out.
I didn't realize that they made the next gen of Crowns that are becoming legal come in hybrids. And I was like, yo, that's cool. I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with me?
I mean,
I feel like that's a thing.
You're a normal person in modern society, I feel. Nothing is wrong with you.
I don't want to be, Kevin. I don't want to be.
Yeah, like I feel like, okay, so you got this ridiculous quote unquote drift car that you've like basically taken this perfectly good car and just destroyed it to the point of it's a piece of shit now, just so that it's a sick drift car. Whereas like you didn't really need to take any of that stuff out. And I kind of feel like that's sort of like maybe a Japanese thing versus an American thing. Like Japanese, it seems like, okay, you have a car slightly modified and you go drifting. It's not like you just completely change the car or destroy it or strip it out or build it or whatever and then go drifting. It's like you just drift what you have. Anyways, so now you have this car that's like totally stupid. So you get a daily and then you're like, this daily, I don't give a shit about it. It sucks. But then as you drive it more, just like the Camry, you're like, man, this thing's like pretty nice. It's comfortable. Like stereo works. Like the power windows work. Like,
okay, so that was me with the TE. I had the TE and I bought the Altezza to take the motor and transmission and put in the TE. It's like sick. I'm going to have a Corolla wagon with the beams. But then I started driving the Altezza and it had a key fob and it had power windows and it had a doubled in stereo and it had air conditioning. And I'm just
it was kind of fast.
I was like, yo, this thing's pretty sick. And then I was just like, yo, I'm gonna sell the T because the price was because kind of that was like the early thing. Those were going up in market a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit, the amount I can get for this car.
I think we're kind of getting to the point of convincing people how to leave the scene instead of like how to. We've just spent like the last few minutes talking about like how dope Camrys are, which is like
No, but I mean, like,
show of our age. But it also is a pretty convincing sales pitch to be like, ignore the thing you're passionate about and get a Camry. So how do you find the balance between like, yo, that Camry's dope, but also I have this stupid car that like most people don't understand?
I mean, I don't know. I was gonna say it's like a slippery slope. Also, like, I don't really know because but it seems like in America you just have your drift car and you have your trailer and then you have your truck, which is your daily, and then you have your fucking your dirt bike and you have whatever else you have.
Freedom.
It is what it is. Like it's just like another toy.
Right.
To some people, maybe it's not like the lifelong hobby or passion,
Yeah. We are
That's
talking
true.
about it like it's awful to leave. And I think it is fine if you've outgrown it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes though, the other side of that is the dudes that have a cool car and then sell it and then continue to like post about the old car that they had, just being like, oh, had it all. And it's like, yeah, and people told you that and then you sold it. Stop whining about it. Like you had a dope car. This is dumb to say, but like the $15,000, and I've had friends that have done this, that have sold their cars, and it seemed like a lot of money at the time. And they're like, in hindsight, that money went real fast, and now I have nothing to show for it. Like it's just
absolutely.
gone. Like, and I could have
always does,
found
man.
more
Yeah.
money, but I can't find that car again.
Absolutely, that's 100%.
You ever get any amount of money, it just nickels and dimes away. Like you never are like. Unless you spend it right away on some, unless you're like, I need this amount of money I'm selling the car for to do this, and then you do that with all of that money, it always just vanishes.
Yeah, I mean, sell a V160 and buy a truck and a motorcycle. It's the way to do it.
For everyone that has a V160 just kicking around. So that plays into what we're saying, I think, a little bit of there's a price point attached to it, but maybe it's not actually that valuable to sell. Like maybe there is a point.
Yeah.
It's like
it's better just to keep it. But the thing is, like a lot of people don't have the space to store a drift car for 1 or 2 or 5 years. You know what I mean? Or like
that is one thing. It is a vast amount of space.
Right.
Like, because I was just thinking like, oh, there's tons of things that you can have that you don't need to sell, so you just don't, But a car is, like it's a very large thing.
Kevin, you said a thing before we hit record, which was funny, but also, I think probably to a point, very like accurate. Going back to like how you guys have managed to stay in cars, and you said something to the extent to just anchor every point of your life to cars so you can't leave, or
it's like completely immerse yourself around cars so there's no possible way to ever get out, even if you wanted to.
You make the choices in life, and like some people make good choices and bad choices, whatever that may mean to you. But like if you're going to get married and stuff, like I know a lot of dudes that got married and their significant other was just like, yo, that shit's stupid, like drifting's dumb and like you're wasting all this money, blah blah blah. Or you get a wife that's like, yo, dope, let's go drifting, I'm into that, I'm happy that you have a passion, and like they support it. But if you don't have that, it's definitely a lot easier for guy number one who has an unsupportive wife or whatever to get out of drifting. It's not going to last too long if your wife or significant other's not down with drifting or cars or spending all your money.
I remember being out drifting, and like we'd all have to stop, and like everyone would like turn their engines off because like Buddy was getting a phone call from his girlfriend, and he said he was at home asleep, but like no, he's out drifting. But like so everyone had to be quiet, and like same thing. It's just like, man, like that's the life you're living. Like the person that you supposedly care the most about and want to share your life with, like you can't even tell them what you're doing. Like
or like they
what kind of life is that?
Or they don't respect your passion or whatever you're into enough to make an effort to like I don't know, not even be into it, but just to acknowledge it and sort of like accept it, or maybe support it even a bit, you know, or support the fact that like that's what you're passionate about. Like, you know what I mean? Support you, not really support the drifting, but just support you.
I will say this. My wife understands that the vehicle downstairs is worth money. And I think that, and I should also reiterate to everyone who doesn't know a thing about me, I don't actually drift, but I just have this like semi-expensive JDM car. And she fully knows that it's worth like a decent amount of money and we could do other things with it. And she will say, she's like, hey, like, I know that the car down there is worth money and I never tell you to sell it. It would make our lives easier, but I don't expect you to do it. But she's very aware of like the dollar amount. But she's, you know, obviously that is a thing. So to your point, how to get old and be into cars is maybe make sure that if it's a thing that you're really into, is you have the support system for it as well.
For
like
sure, man.
Around, like,
I remember back when I was young, like telling girls right in the beginning, I'd be like, if you're ever going to make me choose between like you or my car, I'm just going to choose my car. So like, if that's going to be a problem, that's going to be a problem. And like, now you know.
Tonight, I wrote a song about you, I think. That
Dude,
didn't impress me much.
Don't impress you much. I had a girlfriend one time, and I had started seeing her, whatever. And this is when we had the yellow Crescent, and we used to go down to PGP all the time. And I was getting ready for the weekend, and I went and got picked up tires and stuff like that. And she's like, "Oh yeah, what'd you do today?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I went and picked up tires, and I got this and fuel." And then she's like, "Oh yeah, like what does all that cost?" And I'm like, I mean, I'll probably spend like, I don't know, $700 to $900 this weekend. And she's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? You go to Mexico for that much?" I'm like, yeah, never even thought of that. Like, but yeah, like I got a truck full of tires and I'm going to go drift this weekend. It's going to be so sick. And she's just like, dude,
you don't have a truck. You got a trunk full of tires.
Yeah. Well, I had the MPV, so I guess it was a van full of tires.
But yeah, what it is, Gerard.
She was just like, what the hell? Like Mexico or drifting for one weekend. I was just like,
well, honestly, that is something that like as I've gotten older, I've thought about a bunch too. It's not even that. It's just, all right, I can go through the amount of tires in one weekend that like a family would go through in like a decade.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially if you get a sick car.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just shredding, right? That's like a kind of like boggling thing to think about, you know.
So how do you switch that off in your mind? How do you get rid of that sense of reason?
I mean, honestly, I feel like the older I get, it does play a role. You're just kind of like, man, like you're like, this is a very wasteful sport. It's very wasteful to like money and like mechanical things, and like you just destroy cars, and you know. But it's just so fun, especially if you're remotely good at it. It's like not only is it just like your enjoyment, you're like practicing something that you're proficient at, and like you do a move or you do something and it's like it's rewarding, you know what I mean? It's
it's like the ultimate symbiosis of like man and machine, like, you know what I mean? It's like the skate park but more. It's like instead of like you and this inanimate object, it's you and this fully functioning mechanical thing, and you know what I mean, like you're controlling it at the limit. It's just like such a gratifying feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
But I want to know when you're burning tires, because now there's a part in your mind where you're like, oh, fuck, this would have lasted like a regular family, like 3 years or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you switch that part off? Or is it just your gratification?
Put the fucking pedal to the floor.
It's more the other way. It's like sometimes that part just gets switched on. Most of the time it's switched off.
Like, what do you
For
mean?
me,
I'll just do a burnout on the daily just cause. Like, I don't you know, like
if you're truly into cars, that's just what you enjoy, man. Like you can't not dump the clutch. And I mean, for me, it's like I think about that for like a millisecond and then I, pop the clutch or clutch kick it or go sideways, and I'm just like, this is the best fucking thing in the world. Like, you know what I mean?
Just worth it. No, that's fair.
It's like I said, man, it's like heroin. It's like, not that I've ever done it. I'm just saying, like, for those guys that live on the streets and like, go to scour back alleys and that's exactly the same thing, man. Like we just need to, I don't know if it's
exactly the same.
Yeah, I don't really know that it is.
Yeah, let's not. I thought you were gonna make like a cool, like they live on the street and my heart's in the street type analogy of like street drifting. You're like, you're not homeless, Gerard.
No, what I'm saying,
home and a happy
what I'm saying
family
is the shut the fuck up. I'm saying the addiction
Yeah.
to do that is the level is the same. Like yeah, you
I
can
don't
think
think
about
you're
all these
physically
things.
addicted to doing burnouts.
Are
You're
you not
gonna
though? I don't know.
Are you gonna get burnout sick? You're gonna start convulsing because you
how
haven't done a burnout.
how long has it? How long can we go at the shop without doing a burnout? Like it's fucking
Well, I
not
mean,
2
like
weeks.
that's because we have no self-control.
Because you're
That's a
addicted.
different thing, though. That's a
No.
different thing than being addicted to drugs. Also, you started this with, I've never done crack or coke, but I imagine it's the same. It probably isn't. I don't think you're going to throw up if you don't do a burnout.
Okay, but you.
It's like, oh
I
my
just,
God, someone put Gerard in his car so we can do a burnout. We stop
Yeah,
throwing up. Oh, he's getting the shakes.
I just meant obviously the need to do these things
Yeah,
is similar to
Like-
a drug addict.
Here's how I would.
Imagine like a person who needs like an EpiPen shot. And that's you because you haven't done a burnout, and then we get you in the car and you start doing a burnout, and then you're totally fine. Like that's
No, I'm
basically
good
what
for
you just
now.
described.
We should
But I
get
mean-
Gerard a Medi Alert bracelet that says, like, if he passes out, he has to do a
Yeah, if passed out, do me do
But
a
okay,
burnout.
but listen to this. So like Kevin has been in the shop, and I fire up my motorcycle and I like rev it to the moon, and Kevin's just like fucking pissed out of his brain because like, Gerard, what the fuck are you doing? And I like have to fire up my motorcycle that's louder than shit and just like rev the living shit out of it because like I haven't heard it in like a month or two. Like it's just
Alright.
you have to do it. You know?
I'm not
That's
going to
just-
tell you how you feel about a thing because I don't understand. And I've also never done crack cocaine. So I
But
don't
that's
have
how
a-
you not age out of cars. It's just be so into it that it's
Yeah,
impossible to
I
age
think-
out.
I think that's the thing. So
Number one, don't be into drugs. If you're into drugs, you won't
Yeah.
have money for cars.
There you go.
can't, yeah.
But if you're into cars, you won't have money for drugs. So
I think splitting your interests, this is a bold thing to say, and I could be wrong.
between
Fight
cars
me.
and drugs,
Just anything. Like if you split your interests between cars and like bicycles, like there is this sense that like a lot of guys I know that are into cars or are into a thing, or if they're into sneakers or whatever, they're like hyper focused on that one thing.
Stamps. Pokemon.
Pokemon stamps.
Those go hand in hand, bro.
Royal Dalton dolls,
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go.
But if
You want me
you're
to
collecting.
precious
into China?
moments,
You're into
Dude, I
China.
love China, man.
But no, if you're hyper focused on a thing and you start deviating and like you have like you're into an array of things, it's probably harder to maintain. It's harder to support the one passion if you have a bunch of
Yeah.
passions, right? Like
Totally, 100%.
so,
Like you're not supporting 100% with your wallet. You're not supporting 100% with your heart, with your time, with with anything. So
So the next point is, if you want to get old in the car scene, is don't be a well-rounded person.
yes,
I
exactly.
don't know,
I-
man. There's dudes that are hella into art and like I don't know,
Yeah.
music, and they're
It's
super into
true,
cars.
I'm just joking. But push come to shove, I will like choose car culture before any of the other things that I dip my toe into, right? Like
Stamps.
stamps. I do love a good stamp.
Stamps and spoons, buddy.
But being a guy that does media, it's like I do try to balance both, like having a car that I care about and then like having to invest in equipment and stuff like that. And I never invested in equipment, and I probably suffered because of that. Like I never really fully pursued being like just a straight up media guy. I always thought it was very important to have a car as well.
You were
so-
investing in yourself.
I never
Yeah,
invested
investing
in, myself,
in what
guys.
You didn't.
Wow.
That's why you failed.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
and now I'm here listening to my friend who
Cold blooded.
doesn't do a burnout. He goes into withdrawal and gets the shake.
Dude, you should
yeah,
do a
okay.
burnout in your parking garage, Ryan.
Oof, let's do that. So what have we discovered? If you want to get old in the scene, tether yourself to cars. I
Get
feel
a support system.
Get a support system. Don't do drugs. Even part of the reason I wanted to do this podcast with you guys is because during the pandemic, my proximity to cars has been like vastly cut off. So having a chance to create something that is automotive inspired means a thing to me. So
In the podcast.
yeah, in the podcast, it's
Nice.
like, oh, I can like talk about cars. I have like a schedule time every week that I get to go talk to people. It's like an AA meeting. It's a reverse
Yes.
AA meeting for in Gerard speak.
It's automotive anonymous.
I think that is the thing. It's like when I'm not around it, I miss it a ton, and then like have to figure out a way to get back to it or like cope with it, I guess.
To cope with it.
I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, I don't know.
You're
like,
having withdrawals.
the fact that we're not having events right now is like in like the heat of COVID, we were still able to have drift events, like limited people drift events. But right now, there's no drift events at all. So, like,
Bro, speak for yourself. There's an event in my industrial park every time I drive home.
yeah,
Just kidding.
Yeah, but that's a medical prescription because if he doesn't do it, we'll
Yeah,
have to take him
exactly.
to the hospital.
yeah. That's when like the cop pulls you over and like there's smoke pouring out your window and you're like, "Yo, it's medicinal," and he's like, "Sir, this is a burnout."
Oh, good.
Man, so many of our friends right now are selling their cars, their trailers, their trucks, literally selling everything. And I mean, I assume that's partially to do with COVID and the fact that like, who even knows when we're having another event? And it's like, so yeah, you have this car, this trailer, this truck, everything's sort of
It
sitting there.
feels like we're in the perfect like fucking tornado or perfect storm, I guess is the term. You can't have a car on the street right now because of the super strict police regulations. There's no events going on right now.
Mhm.
And then like the COVID price like jump.
Yeah.
It's like you have this car that you can't. There's no track driving. There's no street driving, and it's worth a shit ton of money, and it's been sitting there, for 6 months or more, and
But then that's counter to what we were saying, right? It's like we said, like you guys managed to stay in it because you had this delay of gratification. And now, to Kevin's point, there's a ton of like immediate gratification sitting right in front of everyone. The real thing here is just keep your eye on the prize, like you got to see past the 1 year. You have to learn to play the long game instead of the short game.
It's pretty crazy to see dudes that are like, doing full builds, like pistons, rods, turbo setups, standalones, roll cages, aero, paint, 4 sets of wheels. And then all of a sudden they're like, nah, I'm over it. It's like, whoa, that's pretty crazy,
You think that's because
like
they bit
how-
off more than they can chew? Like they've got.
I mean,
I've
maybe
seen
they
that be the
they're
cause.
just not that into it, man. Maybe they're into it. It's a short term thing. They're into it because their friends are into it. It's like clubbing.
But I mean, I don't know. Like maybe that dude sold that 100 that he just did everything to, and now building a fucking Silverado, and he's gonna make it squat, and then and then the next thing he's gonna now he's building a drift vat or so, like.
I mean, honestly, in my opinion, though, that's not how it goes, man. People sell their stuff and they just kind of get out of cars. Like that is sort of what we're talking about too. It's like they're not making a lateral move. They're like just getting out of it.
There's those people that do hop from thing to thing to thing to thing. Like I don't know, like that's totally fine. It's like what I mean. Like you wanna taste from every cup, and that is what it is. And it's just like I found the fountain that I like, and I'm just gonna chug,
You got the right cup on the first try, and you've just been chugging.
Never tried any other cups till now.
Yeah. But here's the thing. No, to Gerard's point, there are the people that get super into a thing and they're like really far in it, and then they get out. And I wonder if it's just because like maybe there is that like moment of realization where it's like this is consuming everything, or I bit off more than I can chew, or it's like, man, I'm into like this car that should be worth $5,000. Like I'm into it for 20 grand. Like this is ridiculous. I better walk away. Like there is that sense, that switch that Kevin, you said it rarely turns on for you, but then it like turns on for people and they're like, man, I'm really in this. It's a lot of frustration and it's all consuming. I'm just going to walk away from it. And I've had friends that do that. They take on a build that they can't handle and then they bounce because it's like, it's deterring, I guess, to not succeed. And it's easier to quit than to keep going.
Also worth mention, perhaps, I mean, not so much in our scene, but I bet you with like maybe like the car show or like the stands type scene too, is like there probably are some relatively toxic environments within the car scene or the car, you know what I mean? Like politics, there's like, you build your car this way, or like maybe you're part of this crew or that crew, or like maybe people are building cars so progressively that you can't keep up because you don't make as much money as them. So you get all depressed about it. You know, there's all sorts of that type of stuff too that we haven't even sort of talked about, right?
Yeah.
Like
we do live in an age of comparison. So you go on Instagram and you have to compare yourself to every other build or every other person. And
yeah. And I mean, if you're not super into cars, but you got into cars and like maybe that fame or that those likes or whatever are your jam, and then all of a sudden like you're not getting that many likes because like you can't roll with the big dogs, that there's always going to be someone better than you. And then maybe you know, maybe you're just like, you know what, fuck this, I'm literally living my whole life to like have this ridiculous car that I don't even really enjoy driving.
All right, so
key takeaways are
support system,
financial obviously helps,
delaying gratification,
having realistic goals. Like I feel like if you throw everything into drifting or into cars like super fast, and like, you know, you can get burnt out. But like maybe if you just take it as it is, like maybe you don't need your car to be so ridiculous like instantly, like you can actually ride it out a bit and, you know, enjoy it in smaller doses. And then it has a bit more longevity. I don't know.
That is to me almost by definition close to the sense of delaying gratification. It's like the sense of like, hey, I'm going to build a car flat out right away, and it's going to be all these things to all these people, including me, and I'm not going to get burnt out.
So you're saying when you find like an entire brick of heroin, you just do small doses and extend it out. So like over a long period of time, you're like, no, like I'm fully about heroin. Where if you tried to do the entire brick of heroin all at once, you just die and be like, no, heroin wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So that's how you get into cars. You just kind of like give yourself a little dose of cars over a long time. But if you like just try and go too hard into cars, they'll just burn out and be out of it.
We've had a lot of fun at the expense of drug addiction today. No, I think that's exactly it. And that is one of the things that all of us have in common, is that I think we've come to points in our lives where we've been like, okay, there's something else that takes priority, but we didn't bail on it. There's a bunch of different ways to go about this, and this is maybe just Canadian specific, but I think it's
possible, man.
Could be.
I think it kind of is. And the other thing I was going to say, I just kind of thought right now is a bit too, is like, is it completely specific to our generation? Because I was like, well, all right, well, like, think about all the old dudes. There's tons and tons of old dudes who are into cars.
Yeah, when I used to work at Mopac.
Was that just a function of them being able to like have the car, and they went to college and they like worked at summer and they paid for their college, and then they bought a house, and like all of a sudden it was worth 10 times more than they bought it for, and then it was worth 60 times more than they bought it for, and like of course they could afford to have the car they bought when they were 16. They never had any financial burden or need to sell it or whatever, you know, like
because the house was 20 grand.
Yeah, so like I don't know, like, is this just a generational thing and a regional thing? Like,
yeah,
I'll say that. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say that's a real deep cut there, Kevin. You really got right to the socioeconomic core. Some baby boomer is gonna listen to this and be mad at us.
Why?
No, we looked at the analytics. There's no baby boomers.
Oh, good. Fuck you, baby boomers. You ruined everything. No, because you would listen to this and be like, oh, we're pinning it on them. But yeah, so just by the sheer economics of everything, they have been in positions to do the things that you just described, where it's probably a lot harder now for people to balance the money pit that is cars and regular life. All right, so that's real depressing. So
I hope you guys are enjoying these podcasts. If you guys have any questions or comments, just feel free to, give them to us. Check out our merch, check out our site.
Send Gerard a burnout video so he doesn't.
Yeah. There you go.
Doesn't get the shakes. All right, you guys. Thanks for listening to today's episode. We will be back next week with episode 6. And all right. Good chat, you guys. Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah. See you later, everyone. Hope you enjoy.
Thanks for listening to Serial Podcast 9.